Hello everyone, this is Jed Distler, the official Gramophone blogger about the Chopin competition, and welcome to our daily video Chopin report from the 19th International Chopin Competition here in Warsaw. And I'm sure that last night you were all awaiting the results, and some of you probably were waiting with a great sense of emotion and anticipation, and I'm sure that some of you were happy with the results, some of you less happy. Anyway, the jury has spoken and our finalists have been chosen, and there were several surprises for me, both positive and negative, and some people got in whom I liked yet didn't expect would go this far, but I have to say that I am very disappointed that Jack Gao did not make it into the finals, because for me, his performances have been the most consistently satisfying of any candidate in this competition in every round, not to mention his ravishing sonority and his wonderful sense of projection and his deep musicianship. So that is the one big disappointment for me. So now that I've said my piece, I think we need to recap the events of yesterday, as I have been doing in this series of videos, and it's actually 1 week since we've started. So yesterday, the last 7 out of the 20 pianists selected for the Stage 3 semifinal rounds all performed. Tomoharu Ushida was the first pianist who played, and my impressions about his playing have swung in many directions since I first heard him back in 2021 in the Chopin competition, and I was blogging about the competition for Gramophone, but I was doing that online. And with his return to Warsaw this year, I've been hearing him in the hall, and he has powerful fingers and he has a big sound, and he always makes you aware of that. But as much as I admire his strength and his stamina, I felt that his F minor fantasy and his sonata in B minor performances were unrelentingly big and never quite taking wing. But I have to say that out of curiosity, later in the day when I had a break, can you believe I actually had a break yesterday? Well, I did have a few hours in the afternoon. I went back to my hotel room and I listened on my laptop with my professional headphones, and I listened to these performances, not all of them, but just bits of them, and they did sound less overwhelming on headphones than in the hall. That was kind of strange, but I guess this is the new reality. Is it live or is it live stream? I had problems also with the pianist Zong Wang's basic sonority, but in a very different way, because she tends to force loud passages to the point where they can sound cramped and aggressive at the same time. But on the other hand, some of her softest playing seems not to dig deep in the keys. However, she delivered this amazingly ethereal and rather ghostly presto finale in the second sonata, and that really threw me for a loop. And in her final selection, the Scherzo No. 1, her tone suddenly opened up in a way that I just did not expect. It was really breathtaking, and she controlled her breakneck speeds in this scherzo through stunning rhythmic precision and forceful accents. And this was a truly exciting edge-of-seat performance, and I think it was definitely one of her finest moments throughout the whole competition. And I am suspecting that her B minor scherzo saved her, and that's what helped to lead her into the finals. I actually had to catch Ephan Woo's recital later in the day on YouTube because I was being interviewed during the morning break, and the interview went on much longer than expected, so it was too late for me to go back into the hall. But for me, Ephan Woo's highlights were as good as second ballade as I've heard in these past weeks. And also his first and his third of the Opus 56 mazurkas. I think he played the second one too fast. But he played the Chopin B minor sonata very solidly. It was very professional. All the notes were there, but it seemed rather small of scale to me in comparison with the three heavy hitters that were to happen in the evening. So now we get to the evening performances, and William Yang took no prisoners in the Chopin B minor sonata. Maybe he was a little too driven for comfort in the finale, but this is a pianist who realizes in sound exactly what he conceives in his noggin. And I don't think I've heard such a tightly structured and firmly controlled rendition of the Fourth Scherzo at such an upbeat tempo in concert. And you know, I've talked about this before, you know that Horowitz and Ashkenazy and Godofsky are my go-to recordings in the Fourth Scherzo. Actually, I put Yevgeny Kissin in that company too, come to think of it. But I am happy to add William Yang to my Fourth Scherzo Hall of Fame, for sure. Piotr Alexitz played his best set in stage 3 of the whole competition, to my mind. And he gave us some very colorful and idiomatic performances of the Opus 41 mazurkas. They had this offhand, kind of improvisatory feeling that just sounded so right. And also, he played the prelude in C-sharp minor, Opus 45. And when do you hear this piece played at a steady tempo? I mean, not rigid, but steady, a tempo that you can tap your foot to, and flowing with no effort at all. Usually people rhapsodize this piece and the rhythm turns to mush, but not here. Now, what was interesting about Kevin Chen is that we heard him in stage 2 play the fastest Chopin Opus 10 etudes in captivity. And if you were expecting a gunslinger to defend his title in stage 3, you probably were in for a shock, because he showed up and played the Fourth Ballade and the B minor sonata with relative restraint and a real aristocratic finish, kind of like the young George Bolet in terms of style and temperament, and with all of the expected finesse and astonishing control of the instrument that he has. And, you know, in the Fourth Ballade, I was waiting for some flashes of virtuoso outbursts to happen, because the piece lends itself to that kind of volatility, but that didn't transpire in Kevin Chen's performance. And finally, Eric Liu. Now, he had been ill the day before, so he had rescheduled for last night. But you never would have known that there were any health issues, because he played wonderfully well, with great sensitivity and color, and none of the little micromanaging futzing around that he does tend to do. He started off with a virtually perfect Chopin barcarolle. It was all in proportion. And then he served up that early Polonaise in B-flat major, Opus 71, number 1. That was the one that Ignaz Friedman and Benno Moiseiwicz recorded back in the days of 78s. And Eric Liu played that Polonaise with all of the pomp and all of the scintillation of a dead pianist. I mean, specific dead pianists, not just any old dead pianist. And then after his Opus 56 mazurkas, which did come off quite beautifully, he played the B minor sonata. And this is a piece that Eric Liu has long mastered. He is both on top of and inside of this music. And I wrote in my Gramophone blog, which I hope will be uploaded today. For some reason, the one yesterday, as of recording this, it doesn't seem to be there. I hope both yesterday's and today's will be up in due course. But let me quote what I wrote, because I wrote that Eric Liu's performance of the B minor sonata split the difference between Kevin Chen's aristocratic reserve, William Yang's freshly minted blueprints, Piotr Pawlak's linear awareness, and Jack Gao's voluptuous sound world. We have a break from performances today, and I'm going to take advantage of that by getting in some much needed piano practice. And no, I am not going to be practicing Chopin, although maybe I will sneak in a mazurka or two. From Warsaw, this is Jed Distler, and I look forward to being together with you for my next Chopin report from the 19th International Chopin Competition. So until next time, take care, stay well, and please, please, please be kind.